For the next 30 minutes, we're going to take a deeper dive into how LEGO Ninjago World came to be. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the amazing technology you see on LEGO Ninjago The Ride, and some of the unique ways that we are bringing this adventure to life, specifically here in Florida. We know that this experience is at some of our other LEGOLAND parks, but there's several things that we've done here in Florida that are very unique, and you're going to hear about it. I want to introduce our panelists. So left to right, we are joined by Keith Carr. He is the North American Project Director for Resorts for our creative division of our parent company, Merlin Magic Making. Next to him is Adrian Jones, Divisional Director for Legoland Florida Resort. He's the Master Woo of Legoland. We are very honored to be joined by the next gentleman, Mr. Ernest Yale, the President, CEO, and founder of Triotech, the Montreal-based company that developed some of the amazing technology you saw today, and you're going to hear a lot more about it. And finally, Mr. Rex Jackson, the Vice President of Marketing and Sales for Legoland Florida Resort. So we are happy to take your questions, but I'm going to kick things off. And I'm going to start the first question. This is not like a game, so you don't have to buzz in. But I'm going to start the first question with Keith. So let's start at the beginning. Talk to me about kind of where the idea came from. How was it the Ninjago franchise, or was it the technology? What came first?
It was the Ninjago franchise that came first. So you're looking at the evergreen brands within LEGO and the marketing synergies behind Ninjago is really what helped kick off the rollout for the Ninjago ride and Ninjago Land. So without getting too technical into the process, individuals such as Mr. Jones here kind of kick off what we call a creative brief. You know, aspirations of what they want us to incorporate and develop for their parks and attractions. So we take that, and then my division runs wild, and our creative guys get very creative and think severely outside the box. And we look for tried and true partners like Mr. Ernest over there to kind of help bring some of these fantasies to life. So that is how it all started. It was a need in the park and synergies behind LEGO with what they were going to be doing with Ninjago, with the feature film coming out. And then from there, everything kind of snowball effect down.
Hey, can you hook on to that? Kind of what were you looking for in adding this expansion to the park? What were your sort of goals?
I wanted a ride that was weatherproof. I wanted it at the north of the park. I mean, these are the things that go in the brief. I think the key thing that you're interested in here is the process, really. And yeah, the creatives come up with it, but the sites themselves, all the divisional directors with the marketing directors get together and we talk about what the need is. And as you know, we are rolling these rides out with Ernest's help and MMM's help across the world. But our needs here were very, very clear. We wanted to have a very big indoor dark ride concept. Ninjago was the brand, to Keith's point, that we wanted to latch onto because it is an evergreen brand within LEGO. And I also wanted, the specific brief from me was that our landscaping and our garden had to be the best because we are in Cypress Gardens, or the old Cypress Gardens, which again, as I said on many times, I want this to be and is the most beautiful Legoland park in the world, and it should be because of our heritage. So other than that, you know, the creatives start getting crazy then with all the spinners and all that, but those are the things that I put down.
Before we take questions from the audience, I feel like we need to stop and address the elephant in the room. It's the 21st century, and we have a panel made up of 4 middle-aged white guys. Rex, can you talk about the ways that LEGO Ninjago World, not only as it was brought to life here in a physical way in the theme park, but also the franchise itself, the storytelling, the mythology, is really very inclusive. This is not a boy brand. This is not a boy theme park attraction, a theme park land.
No, and in fact, I can share a personal story with you as well, because I'm the father of 2 daughters, a 9-year-old and a 5-year-old, who love Ninjago. Even before Ninjago the World was an idea, they've been watching the series on Cartoon Network. So I think LEGO as the company, along with Cartoon Network, has created a storyline that features not only the male characters that people are very familiar with, Takai, Zane, Lloyd, but also strong female characters like Nia. That's one of the things that we focus on whenever we build attractions and launch attractions in our park, is we want them to appeal to all genders. And so as you look at the costume characters that we put in to our land. You know, it's not just the Kai character, but we've also brought Nia as a very strong female character. So you have the brother and the sister there. So I know that from all the research that we've done, that this land is very appealing to both the boys and girls. And I know personally from my own 2 daughters who were excited about Ninjago from the first time I told them all the way through the first time they rode it just about a week ago, that it is a land that appeals to both boys and girls very strongly.
I think the other thing that, just to add, sorry to go out of kilter, but I think the key point is, though, part of the brief is we wanted a ride that all the family can ride, and the element of competition was quite important as well in the brief. And as we know with this ride, you know, if you can sit up straight as a child and you're with somebody who's 48 inches, you can go on this ride. That's quite a key component to this brief.
Well, one thing I'll ask is, you talk about interactivity, and I want to hear from Ernest in this answer. How important is it going forward as a theme park operator to build attractions that have repeatability, interactivity? And I'm thinking back to my childhood, where I didn't have ultra high def 4K VR video game systems in my house. So a trip to a theme park was a really special experience. You know, how hard is it to compete with those kind of consumer experiences that everybody has on their phone, on their tablet, at home? So Ernest, you know, what was your goal in trying to make something that could exceed the expectations of guests, that could exceed the type of products that they have in their houses?
Yeah, I think the key, as you say, is to always push the envelope. What we try to do at Triotech is look at what technology exists out there and which technology can be applied to a theme park that has never been applied to a theme park. So for instance, when usually we hear about a ride is interactive, but what people usually mean is it's very immersive, you're in the ride. But here we wanted to do the ride, which I consider right now probably one of the most really truly interactive ride in the world, because you know, there's hidden things, there's a score, there's a learning curve. The more you do it, the more you enjoy it, which is not necessarily the curve of a traditional ride. So we use the most advanced technologies out there. We use large screens, special effects, projections, 3D, and we mix all of this. People don't necessarily know, but there's more than 100 computers running at the same time, linked together. There's computers on board, there's computers on the servers, computers attached to the projection system. Everything is linked together. It has to work below 50 milliseconds, so it seems instantaneous. Plus there's multiple players, and there's the score. So it's a very complex. It's not NASA, but I mean it's a very complex ride. It's like a control center.
What's the analogy? They say that nowadays you have more computing power in your smartphone than they did to send them into the moon.
Exactly, but if you want people to come to an amusement park, you have to give them more. So you have to do an experience that's not possible, where you get the large screen, the movement of the car, the scoring, and the fact that you're with your kids and family. And usually the kids are much better, by the way, than the parents. So the kids teach the parents, and they understand very quickly how to interact. So it's a very unique, the parents I've seen, because I've spent time in the ride, and parents are like, you know these characters, they don't even know that the kids look at, listen to the TV series, and so they learn. It's a learning thing for the parents, and it's a great interactive experience. On top of the technology, it's an interactive experience with the kids, with their family. It's a chance nowadays, when you go around the table and everybody's on their iPhone and on Facebook or whatever, Instagram, and nobody talks to each other. But now, I've seen half the time, if you look at the people riding, they don't necessarily even look at the screen, they look at each other, how, what's the reaction and how they're performing. They look at their score of the neighbors, so they want to beat their score. So it's a very, interactive experience.
Do you have any questions from the audience?
Just one thing, Dave, just to kind of follow up on what Ernest was saying, is what makes the attraction so unique is if you go and look at the competitive market set, it's a traditional kind of point and click type of apparatus. So we actually entertained that idea for a very long time. We were first looking at doing this ride, and we wanted to push the envelope. So we do like to take risks in a calculated manner to try to help elevate the game and push the envelope, so to speak. So it felt very right to incorporate these hand gestures into this ride using the hand technology, because it really feels like you're becoming a ninja. So they partnered very well and helped elevate what we're trying to do with interactivity. It is, basically industrializing what our kids are familiar with here today, but taking it to a much, much bigger scale into the theme park realm. So,
yeah, the request was from Merlin to us was, can can you do ninja moves, and really you feel like you're a Ninjago, and then the moves are recognized and they're part of the story and the game and the score. So actually, because we flew to Merlin is based in the UK, so I remember flying to London and the request was sent. I flew back across the ocean, and in 24 hours we created a demo with a hand gesture technology. Obviously, it was the really basic thing, and I sent a video of myself. And I sent it to them to say, look, we can do something with it. Then it took months, and we did like a mock-up and research, and we put real kids, people who've never tried such a ride, to see, how do they react, because they need to learn quickly. And but basically, it's a unique ride that you won't have anywhere else, where you basically do ninja moves. They're recognized by the ride, and you get a score and everything. So it's a I don't like to say that it's better or anything like that, but it's really unique and different. You won't have a ride like this anywhere else in Orlando for sure. So.
Do we have a question from up front?
Question from
How long did it take to make this ride, and what was the most challenging aspect of it?
When did we start talking about the ride?
We met at IAPA in, was it 2014?
14, yeah. It was about a three-year process.
Yeah, and
2.5, 3 years.
And I was part of the first meeting, I think about 6 months before that, where we met at Legoland, California, funnily enough, and that's where the actual concept, first idea of linking Ninjago with Dark Ride, with the type of ride that we liked in the market that we wanted to do something. That point, we hadn't got the hand technology. That, to Keith's point, I think it was a
point and click.
It was a point and click trackless system, I think, was the way we left that meeting, and it's since become something that's there's no gun and there's a track. So it did change quite significantly.
It was 3 years from concept to completion, and it rolled out to Billund. So.
And the challenges were obviously the technology, but also obviously Ninjago was one of the most popular series. So on TV, people recognize the characters. They need to be, really accurately depicted in the attraction. So we actually used some of the real models that are used on the television series, but then we animated them for the game. Put it in a real-time engine. What you see in the ride, people, just for your understanding, it's very important to understand that it's a real-time rendered technology. It's not pre-rendered. Every time you do it, and if you hit something hidden, and one of the hints is look at the side of the screens and there's hidden stuff. If you hit something hidden, it's a different experience. Every time you'll do it, you'll see something different. So it's not pre-rendered. It means it uses basically very advanced video game technology, but projected on a super large screen while the vehicle is moving and the user is tracked by the computers. So layers and layers of challenges, but
yeah, I mean, for us, we definitely challenged Ernest in staying true to the Ninjago brand. We have to stay on brand with all of our attractions. So we were very tough on the Triotech team to make sure that was perfect. I think from our perspective, from Merlin, it was the reliability of this new technology. So we spent a lot of time testing and making sure that this would be acceptable for a mass rollout, which it has turned into. I remember Ernest, like you said, we set up a very basic mock-up at first, and we ran it for months and months, and must have broke the beam, I can't tell you how many million times, but it was just constant to prove that it would last year after year after year in a high industrial type of situation.
So the hand gesture recognition system uses obviously human hands. So we built not a robot, but a hand that moves continuously. We ran it for like 24 hours a day for like months and months, just to make sure that the sensor and everything was working. You know, when you have a Windows computer or a PlayStation, oftentimes it crashes. You just shut it off or you reboot it. Obviously, we can't do that on a ride. So the way it works with software is, for a software to work 24 hours, it needs to really work for months. So we need to run it 50 times more. And we ran it with that kind of robot, moving the hands to make sure that then. I remember I was looking at the timer.
You can get to just do that?
Yeah, I mean, we have rules against that. So we had to use kind of like a robot. And I remember I looked at the timers and it was like, wow, this computer has been running for 3 months nonstop. So it's been quite a challenge.
Yeah, that's when we were sold.
Rex, I want to talk a little. We've heard a lot about the hand moves and how critical they are to this experience. Florida is very unique though, and as you've been watching this kind of looping video, you've seen what we call these signature hand moves. Talk to me about where those came from and how they were developed, and what were sort of the learnings from some of the other parks that kind of informed that decision?
Yeah, so I think, first and foremost, the genesis for this was the marketing campaign called Become the Ninja. And the idea behind that was, if you think about any girl or boy, if you think back to your own childhoods, for those of us that are adults, many times you role played. You played cops and robbers, you played cowboy and Indian, you played something. So you were attempting to become a character. And what we know from Ninjago, because of the popularity of that storyline, is that many kids want to become the ninja. They want to be like Kai and Zane and Lloyd. And so with this technology, the fact that it is your hand movements that are actually generating the gameplay on the screen before you. It's not a trigger, it's not a gun, it's your movements that cause that gameplay. The idea was that on Ninjago the Ride, you can become the ninja. And so as we looked at the ride technology and saw the launches in Billund and California, one thing that we also saw is people like to try different moves and different ways of being able to interact with the ride. And that's one of the good things about the technology, is it doesn't require one specific movement to generate an action on the screen and to generate a score. We encourage the girls and boys and the families to try lots of different moves. And so we worked in developing what we think are 5 moves that work pretty well on the ride, that we kind of call the signature moves that underneath the Become the Ninja campaign. But certainly, while those 5 do work very well, it doesn't mean that we don't also encourage you to try your own moves and potentially create a 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th Ninjago signature move as well.
So piggybacking off of that, what are some of the other ways that the way Florida is marketing this attraction is different? And obviously, people have been seeing the Kids Bop excerpt on the screen behind them.
Yeah, I think there were a few things. So technically, I think we're the 4th rollout within the LEGOLAND Parks franchise, with Billund going first, California, Malaysia, and then us. So one thing we've been able to do is take a lot of learning from those parks and incorporate that into our land. I think that Adrian mentioned a focus on the landscaping. I think that when you walk through our land, that was a very purposeful strategy that we had, was to make sure that we're bringing to life the landscaping in a way that, yes, fits the heritage of Cypress Gardens, but then also, 2, brings to life, the Ninjago world, which is, based off of a Japanese ninja temple. Also, when you look at some of the interactives, we've talked a lot about Ninjago the Ride, but there's this whole training camp that's outside of the ride that you actually have to walk through on your way to the ride. And so the spinners, the model build, the Jay's Lightning Strike, some of those have been upgraded from some of the previous launches. So we put a lot of effort into making sure that the full land experience, from the time you enter into the portal, through the training camp, through the ride, has been optimized and in some cases upgraded. And then you already heard me talk about one of the other new additions for Florida compared to the other parks. Also is the addition of Nia, the costume character, where we are the only LEGOLAND park where you can find the costume character Nia.
Abe, can you talk a little bit about, to Rex's point, you could have just stopped at a ride. You could have said, we've got this great state-of-the-art, groundbreaking ride. How important was it to make this into a land where there were a variety of experiences, things for different ages, different abilities, and kind of expand that sort of footprint?
Well, I think there's still a few of them that are just going to be the ride itself in different guises. But I thought we all felt here that it was pretty important that we set the scene with for all the children in terms of, as you approach the ride, we had this big swathe of land that we could have just landscaped or put a restaurant on, I don't know. But we thought that the most important thing was there's other things for the children to do that builds towards the ride experience. And that literally was where we are. And I have to say the marketing team did a fantastic job of then translating that and the moves and all those things into the campaign. You see Kids Bop's doing the shuriken shuffle and all those different techniques. But there was a very deliberate strategy around that as well. It was, when we opened Billund, people went on the ride and didn't know what to do. They didn't know what to do because the typical ride, as we said before, there is a trigger or there is a device, you hold something, you fire. So there was a real education process on how to make the ride work, because human nature, you're used to being at a carnival or wherever it may be. So part of that was about educating guests and preparing them, not with the marketing before they arrive, the collector card series, the kids bot. They're in the land, we talk about the ninja skills and all the skills they're going to need once they get on the ride. You've been through the ride now, we reinforced that in the queue line. So I think all of it came together with that kind of mindset that we didn't want to fall prey to what happened to Billund.
Yeah, just to follow up on that, we felt it would be very, intuitive of how to use the ride. What we didn't think was that the generation now, with their touch pads and iPads and things, it's touching the screen to make things move. So there was a big disconnect between kids getting on the ride and wanting to touch the sensor bar before.
They were swiping it, weren't they?
It was it was an outfall of what Rex helped create that also helped educate the guests. So it was a double-headed sword for us. It worked very well for education-wise here in Florida, where the kids are practicing their moves and kind of preparing to become a ninja before they show up here in Florida.
And just to close the question, one of the things that I will be doing literally in the next 2 days is I will now be writing a report with our findings to, I think the next one in line is Germany, and giving them some feedback on what we've seen. And we then share and the rollout. And the good thing for Triotech is that, there's a lot of Legoland parks in the world and they all want Ninjago, which is great. So it's a good
for us.
it's a good piece of business for us, it's a good piece of business for them, but also shame on us for not sharing the simple little things that we've noticed and then passing them on to our sister parks,
Since you've still got the mic, I'll ask you another question. When we announced the grand opening date, you talked about the growth of Legoland over the first 5 years and kind of the evolution of the park. It's now a multi-day resort destination with on-site accommodations, and you made the observation that the technology behind the attraction didn't even exist when we opened 5 years ago. So how do you see this in line with that growth curve, that evolution of this property from just a theme park to a theme park, a water park, a hotel, a second accommodation coming in, this sort of variety of experiences that you've added?
I always said, opening the park 5 years ago was a giant hurdle that we overcame, and the water park was already here, and there was some people in the audience who've been through us on this journey. But we added a veneer of Lego, but we've continued to enhance that. I think the hotel, as I've said before, changed our business. But we always said we would add something new into the park every year without fail, and we go through cycles of that. And this is one of those big cycles that was a big need. But a project of this, as we've just said, takes years to make happen. It just so happens that it's fallen on another year. We don't do things by half here in Florida, and we're doing beach retreats as well. So we're more than doubling our accommodation in the same year as launching a massive new ride. And what is actually great for us is that Lego, it's a big year for Lego. You've probably seen the trailers for the Lego Batman movie, there's a Ninjago movie, but also things you don't know, there's a lot of work going on behind the scenes in North America for new product, new things that are going to launch the market. So 17 is a big year for Legoland Florida and Resort, and a big year for Lego. So I kind of have answered your question, it's just that we haven't stopped here. We'll never finish. I'm using a little bit of a Walt Disney thing here. Legoland Florida will never be finished. It will never be finished. We will always refresh, add, take out, redo, add more accommodation. That's kind of what we're doing.
I think we have a question from the audience.
Yes, I had a question about your IP and of course with Ninjago. That's constantly changing. If a character, say, gets a new special power or something like that, is that something that you're looking to upgrade the ride system maybe later on? Keep it fresh, keep it often kind of thing, changing with the IP?
It's a good question.
Do you want to about the? Are we going to let the cat out the bag about the overlay?
Just in terms of the technology, like in a video game, it's exactly the same thing. We could add characters, we could add moves, we could add different powers, we could change some of the screens. But I'll let Adrian answer.
He doesn't want to say too much.
I wasn't allowed to say anything.
I think the key thing is to say that it's software. You can change the software. You can change the program. You can give it a seasonal slant.
So you're going to announce the Christmas version now?
Well, yeah, wouldn't that be cool? But it would give us a lot of variety. But I do think this is going to be a signature ride and already is in a lot of the parks. So having that flexibility is kind of cool, actually, kind of cool.
And the next question that I have is pretty much for everybody, since of course the big kind of question on everybody's mind: what's your highest score for everybody on the panel? Because I want to beat it.
Gosh. I think mine's about 230.
No, yours is rubbish. It was like 50, I thought.
No. The first time I went, it was 50 because I just simply couldn't get the technique, and I hear that a lot. That you go the second time, and I've got to go on it again because I was really bad. But no, I think about 230. What's yours?
290.
See, you can't ask this question because Ernest is going to be like
Ernest is gonna
4,583,000.
No, there's a limit to the score, but yeah.
He's got the robot hand that can go nuts.
The robot has the winner.
Can you give us
I got facial recognition from my face.
can you give us some tips on like where should we look, or is there hidden things?
once I can say one thing. When you're on the transition screen or you're leaving the screen, that doesn't mean you should stop playing. Always look outside of your peripheral vision. So whatever people are doing, look elsewhere. So it's all about hidden stuff, Easter eggs, and never stop playing.
Are different things you hit worth different points?
Yes, there's a scoring system. How quick you hit them, how precisely you quickly. If they're further away. If they're closer, that's easier. So it's all about, like in a video game, it's all about logic. So if it's harder, it should give you more points.
They're all Easter eggs.
If someone is having trouble, like me, aiming, what is the sensor looking for? Is it looking for the height that you are above it? Is it looking for the angle at which your hand is moving?
It's
Or just
looking
the point
at
at which
many
you cross
different
the
things,
plane?
but you have to be 8 inches, I think.
Okay.
Don't be on the sensor. And the thing with the different moves is there's different ways of mastering them. So if you go like this, well, you can master that move. But generally speaking, you go higher, it goes higher, lower, left, right.
Okay.
But just master one movement. There's 5 different ways or more to do it. Go slowly in the beginning. Just try to aim in the middle, and then correct your. It's like when the first time you use the mouse, or I mean, it's for most kids here. It's been ages, but.
So if you want to say shoot up, do you angle your hand going up, or you just start?
It depends on the technique.
higher?
Let me give you my technique
All right.
because
Yeah.
I'm a middle-aged guy, and I'm out of breath after the first scheme. So
Yes.
I actually
Great
plant my arm down on the actual.
Okay.
Mine's the cobra. So basically, and then you move your fingers. So if you kind of move your fingers up, and then you tend to flick and then move your fingers, but my arm is positioned. I mean, doing this, I just can't do the old shuriken shuffle and all that. I just can't do it. But that's the way so it's almost a flicking technique.
Okay. And I have a question about accessibility. When the Xbox Connect and the PlayStation Move came out, a lot of African American gamers reported that it would not detect them. Have you guys tested this with people with dark skin?
We tested it with everybody basically.
Okay.
So I've seen videos. So we tested it literally with hundreds. Obviously, we're based in Canada, so it's very cosmopolitan city. So yes, and obviously this ride now works in Malaysia, and so
It's a good question though, because it was a question we asked actually.
I'll ask one question of all 4 of you, and we'll go left to right. How do you know that you did a good job? For each of you, personally, how do you know on opening day that you've succeeded in meeting or exceeding your goals?
It sounds cheesy, but for me, I like to watch the kids as they enter into the land. I like to see their expression when they come off. So it's that interaction, kind of the wow moment where their eyes get really big when they first get in and see everything. How they're high-fiving their brother or sister, or taunting their dad that they beat the score when they come out. To me, that's how we knew we did a good job.
I stood by the photographs at the end. That's always a very telltale sign. I've been in theme parks for 30 years. Now, when you're opening a big roller coaster, you can sheer by the sheer shock on their faces. We've got a winner here, okay? We've got a winner. And it's that I want to tell my friends about it. That's marketable. But the sheer joy of the kids on this ride as they see their scores and the fact that they're running off going, I want to go on it again, that's huge. That is my initial payback. That means we've done a good job with this ride. I think the second thing is obviously that we want to see more visitor volume, but that's just the divisional director with me. But no, I think it's that sheer elation and that sheer achievement or a sense of achievement, and they want to go on it again. I think this is a winner for us, definitely.
Yeah, for us it's the same thing. Me, it's riding with the kids and seeing the reaction. But to be very candid, I mean, we're the technology guys. So I've started working programming games at 12 years old, and you guys are in the industry, so you know that the more complex the ride is, sometimes there's issues with the ride. So we have at Triotech a responsibility towards Merlin that the ride works always, is up 99.9% of the time. And when we started doing interactive things, probably in 2010, 2011, we had issues with with the cameras, with the guns, the computers. And now the technology is pretty stable. So what keeps me up is always like, is the ride working, the technology behind it. So we need really, before the ride opens, 6 months before, we need to make everything stable. We need to design, the way we design things is usually, it's complex technology, but we need to make it as simple as possible. This is the way that we will have a highly complex ride that works all the time, because the thing that we don't want to have is people waiting in line, and I had this even at Disney, and any of the parks can happen, and the ride is down and you have a frustration that you can't get into the ride. So what my responsibility as the owner of Triotech is, as the president, is to make sure that this ride works well for everyone and that customers are happy and they have a great experience, because in the end of the day, that's why people come for them. It's the experience that they have.
Yeah, and for me, I'll echo a little bit of what you've heard. It goes back to the kids. We pride ourselves on being a theme park that is built for kids. And so for me, it's the expressions on the faces of the kids when they come into Ninjago. A great example of something actually occurred during the annual Pass preview event last weekend, where it wasn't actually on the ride, it was in the land, where I saw two girls, two friends, probably 9, 10 years old, karate chopping, karate kicking the Jay's reaction game, which is the Jay's lightning strike with the different buttons. And seeing them, that was a movement that we didn't really anticipate, because every time I've ever seen somebody do that game, they're doing it with their hands. But in Ninjago, the land of ninjas, they became a ninja, and they were karate kicking the game, and thankfully it held up to the karate kicks. So I was also...
That wasn't what you said at the time, Rex. But...
so I watched, literally 10 minutes, I stood back and watched them play it over and over and over again as they were trying to beat each other's score, as they karate kicked every single light on that particular game. And so for me, that was when I knew we had a winner, because it was the culmination of the Become the Ninja campaign, and I saw that transpiring right before me with that particular game.
Do we have any other questions from the audience?
What do you think is going to be the most used move?
Good question.
I'll give the answer from the perspective of a child, my daughter. Because what I've also seen kids, so if I take it from the perspective of the kids, they like the Shuriken Shuffle or the Chops of Fury, because they like the movement. Where adults like the precision
Old dudes
of a
like
cobra.
us.
Yeah. But the kids, what they'll do, you've probably seen it, it's how fast can I move my hands?
Yeah.
So I think certainly if you were to ask my daughter, she would tell you that the Chops of Fury by far is her favorite.
Do we have another question? Yeah, you go.
Okay, we've already talked about the 100 computers and the stability and everything about how advanced technology it is. So once again, computers are involved, and say there is a glitch that a simple reboot doesn't fix. What is the process in place to keep this ride from being down too long?
I can talk a bit about the technology. One interesting thing is, like today, you guys had they were filming with the GoPros. So obviously it takes more time to take the card out and everything. Because it's a video game base and it's not pre-rendered, what can happen if there's a bit of a delay is you continue playing. Obviously the score is adjusted accordingly, but you can stay in front of a screen and continue playing. It's like a loop. So that's an added bonus, where if you were with like a ride with an animatronic that would be pre-programmed, at the end of the loop it would just stop and you would be stuck in there. Well, what we did, and this we learned from after the first launch in Billund, is we keep on the game playing, so people won't even notice. They think, they don't know that let's say it's 20 seconds, and if they're there 27 seconds, they won't notice. Then we adjust the score accordingly to make it fair for everyone.
Your arm does. Because I've been on it a few times, I've been on this screen a while now.
For us, we measure our performance on ride downtime, so it is an important part of the brief that goes into all these projects. So as we briefed in Triotech, we wanted that simplicity. Yeah, there's 100 computers, but how do we simply replace one if one goes down? So they came up with a very unique offering where basically they're plug-and-play type servers. So if C9 goes down, we have a backup server that plugs in and gets booted to C9. It's that simple. So we minimize the downtime. So we know it's technology. There are going to be issues that pop up. So how do we minimize that? And that was the solution that we developed with Triotech to make sure that we don't have extended periods where kids can't enjoy the attraction.
And there's redundancy always built into these computers. Obviously, the fact that there's no moving part in the interactivity. If you had a device, I mean, people have, breaking them and everything. There's no moving parts. So it's been actually a very good advantage with the technologies.
And if we have any mechanical issues, you can actually take the trains off. There is a bay where you can take a faulty train off or something of that nature. But like I say, that's brand new, and that things can happen. But we'd spot that on the checks that we do in the morning, the vigorous checks. But it's a very reliable ride. It's indoor. It's one of those. The dark rides are very easy to maintain. They really are. It is about the technology, actually.
I think we've got time for one more question, and then we've got some more flash drives to give out for the ride footage. One more question from the audience?
A technical stat, if you can share it. What is your hourly rider capacity, and how many pixels are on the largest screens that you use?
It's millions of pixels. I'm trying to remember. Maybe Christian has but it's high definition, obviously. In terms of riders, I know you guys can answer, but I know.
It's our what we call theoretical capacity is 1,000 an hour.
Yeah.
Obviously, some families want to be 3 or but the capacity is 1,000 per hour.
I think that's all the time we have, and I'm going to turn it over to Heather to sort of pass out